Sometimes people walk around and they feel depressed, they feel down on themselves, they feel miserable, and they don't even know why. Well, one of the reasons that I'm going to suggest that you could be walking around feeling miserable, feeling down, feeling depressed about something is because you're not monitoring your input. You're not paying attention to what you're putting in your brain. And so what I want to suggest to you is that your input ultimately dictates your output. So where you're spending your time, the activities that you're engaging in, what you're doing physically throughout the day, what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're paying attention to, what you're giving your conscious attention to, ultimately has a huge impact on your output, what's going to come out of you. So if you're constantly watching the news and paying attention to the news, it's likely that you are going to have a very grim outlook on life. I don't watch the news. I think the news is terrible. I remember a few years ago, I was at a business conference and I was ironing my clothes and I was in a hotel, so I wasn't familiar with the channels because it was a different cable company than the one I have in my house. So I just put the TV on and the news happened to be on, and I'm sitting there ironing my clothes, and in the background I hear the news, and literally in the first 3 minutes of the news segment, it was who died, who got killed, a terrorist attack that took place. It was nothing but negativity. And that's really only just 3 minutes of my time, and I'm a person I just kind of found myself in that situation. That's exactly why I don't watch the news. People tell me, well, you should watch the news to stay abreast on current events. Listen, if something is that really impactful, that it's going to impact, if it's something that serious that's going to impact me, I believe in the 6 degrees of separation. I believe that if there's a tornado that's about to rip my house out of the ground, somebody's going to tell me about it. I don't need to watch the news to learn about it. And so the news is just one example of toxic input. If you are constantly exposing yourself to negativity, to toxic things, to things that are going to hurt your mind, so to speak, and poison your mind, then your output is the same exact thing is going to happen with your output. So the thing is that you can't delete what you have in here. So if you're a person that has been focusing your energy on negative things and then as a result feeling down about yourself, maybe you're not making the money that you want to make, maybe you don't feel like you've achieved your life purpose, maybe you feel unfulfilled, like something's missing from your life and you want to make a change, so you want to stop exposing yourself to all the negativity and focus your attention on more positive things to make that change. The one thing you have to realize is that you can't erase the input that you already have. You can only replace it. And so what you need to do is start choosing your influences and your influencers much more carefully. You have to pay very close attention to what you're watching, what you're buying into, what other people are saying to you, and the company that you keep. Because if you surround yourself with negative people, with paranoid people, with people that focus only on the bad stuff and always see the glass half empty, that's going to influence you. That's going to have a negative effect on you. So you got to start being very selective with what you expose yourself to and who you expose yourself to. And then another very important thing is you have to start to change your language. You have to start to change the way you talk to other people and the way that you talk to yourself. Because the words that you use have a very, very, very profound impact on what happens in your life. If you constantly tell yourself that you can't do something, if you constantly tell yourself that you're doomed or that you have no luck or that you'll be broke for the rest of your life, that's going to turn into your reality. Now, people tell me, well, how do you prove that? How does that happen? How does what somebody says or thinks dictate their reality? And how it works is that you will begin to miss opportunities that could potentially help you. That's the easiest way to explain it. So it's not like if you think to yourself, man, I'm always going to be broke, like you're going to wake up tomorrow and your bank account's going to be sucked out. Or if conversely you start saying, I'm going to be rich, you're going to wake up and find that you got a deposit for $1 million in your bank account. It doesn't happen like that. It happens more subtly over time. So my point is that if you're always telling yourself that you're going to be broke, you'll fail to identify opportunities that could potentially help you out financially. If you start changing your language and telling yourself that you will be rich and you will be successful, eventually you will begin to identify opportunities that will pan out for you. So you have to start changing the way that you talk to yourself and the way that you communicate with other people. And in the beginning, it's a tough thing to do because you will find yourself stuck in the habit of using certain types of words, or you may have a certain type of vocabulary that you follow. And I could tell you that if you really consciously take a look at it, that vocabulary, if you're not happy in your life, if you feel unfulfilled, if you feel depressed, if you feel down on your luck, I can guarantee you, you probably have a toxic vocabulary. If you take a look at the words that you're using most of the time, they are probably very limiting, dark words. And so you got to work on changing that. And that takes effort because ultimately the way you speak is a habit. You speak the way you speak because you've developed a pattern of the way that you communicate with yourself and the way that you communicate with other people. You got to now start beginning to change that pattern. And in the beginning, when you do it, you're going to resist it a little bit because it's not going to feel natural to you. But the more you do it with the repetition, it will become easier. So remember, you can't erase the negative input. You can only replace the negative input. And the only way to replace the negative input is to actually start exposing yourself to more positivity, reading more books, focusing on opportunities, focusing on the good things in life, choosing your influences and your influencers more carefully, and ultimately changing your language, changing the way you speak to yourself and with other people.